Hi, I'm Bri Allison with the Power of the Patient Project, and welcome to our new segment, Tell Us Your Story. Today we are joined by Mrs. Dawn Corbelli. Ms. Corbelli is a wife, mother, veteran, college graduate, and a survivor of a traumatic brain injury. Mrs. Corbelli's life was changed 14 years ago after getting into a car accident with her daughter, Veronica, who was just 15 years old at the time. Since their accident, Mrs. Corbelli has become a caregiver to Veronica and a mental health advocate, raising awareness and educating others about traumatic brain injuries. Mrs. Corbelli also recently released a memoir, A Miracle a Day, One Day at a Time, Hope After Traumatic Brain Injury, that details their journey to recovery after the life-altering accident. Mrs. Corbelli, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So to start the interview, can you explain what a traumatic brain injury is?
It's a brain dysfunction caused by a blow to the head. It can be from falling or a car accident or being hit in the head, anything that's traumatic.
And would you mind talking about what caused your traumatic brain injury?
No. We were in a car accident, February 13th, 2008. My daughter was driving with her permit, and I was a passenger. And we were turning left on a busy road, and this is what we think happened because we were knocked out and neither of us saw anything coming.
Oh my
And
goodness.
also the truck that hit us didn't see us. There was no skid marks. What we think my husband thinks happened was a big truck like an 18-wheeler was turning right, and we were pulling out from a stop sign to turn left, and we didn't see maybe the 4x4 that was behind the 18-wheeler because they didn't, have skid marks, and they hit us going 60 miles an hour. And we were going about 5 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're
Yeah.
happy that you and your daughter are okay given the circumstances.
Thank
Um,
you.
and so what led them to believe that you had traumatic brain injuries, and what other injuries did you have from your accident?
I just want to let you know, when the ambulances got there, my daughter's blood pressure was 52 over 0.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Um, I kept repeating myself over and over, and I just didn't know what was going on, and I had been unconscious. And um, I think they knew I had a brain injury because I kept asking the same questions over and over. And my daughter was unconscious. She was immediately put in a coma. She was in a coma for 2 weeks, and anything over 24 hours is considered a severe traumatic brain injury. And they took tests, CTs
Hmm.
and MRIs. So that's how they knew.
And how did you feel about, like, what went through your mind after hearing the news that both you and your daughter had traumatic brain injuries from this?
Honestly, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and I kept asking my husband every day, what, where was Veronica? So he had to explain it to me every day
Oh,
where she
wow.
was, that she was in the ICU and that, you know, she was in a coma and on life support.
And did you have any other physical injuries from this? Because I
Yes,
can imagine that was a very serious accident.
it was. I had 9 staples in my head and 6 breaks in my pelvis,
Oh
but
my
Veronica
Lord.
got the worst of it. She had a sheared brainstem, a bruised frontal lobe. They called it scrambled eggs. Um, 8 breaks in her pelvis, 2 broken hips, a broken left ankle, and a paralyzed left side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is I can't even imagine what you guys went through after all of that.
A lot of people don't live when they get sheared brainstem, but she's a miracle. She is a miracle. Right now, she was 15 at the time of the accident, and now she's 30 and high functioning. So
Oh,
we
that's
were told
amazing.
we were told she would remain in a vegetative state, and
Oh
now
my
she's just,
gosh.
yeah,
That is a miracle.
yeah.
And so, what was the recovery process from the car accident been like for both you and Veronica, since it's
Well,
been quite some time?
sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no, you're fine.
When we were in the hospital, my husband told me that they wanted to send me home after just a couple days, and I couldn't do anything, and I lost my memory for 7 weeks. So we went to my husband went to social services, and they had to get my doctor to write to the insurance company to allow me to stay in the hospital longer. And that same thing happened to my daughter. She came out of the ICU, but she was still, you go from a vegetative state to a minimally conscious state to being conscious. Well, she was still in a vegetative state, and they wanted her out of the hospital. And they told us that since she would remain in a vegetative state, we needed to find a nursing home for her. So my husband also had went through the steps to get the doctor to write a note to the insurance company for Veronica to stay in the hospital too. And she ended up staying for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, at least your husband was able to write them a letter and convince them otherwise than to send you guys home before you were ready.
Right. So as far as healing, you said the recovery process, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We both had to have physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. And before we got out of the hospital, and also after, for a long time, Veronica went to therapy for over a year. And then, well, before I tell you that, in the hospital, we had somebody came to visit us and asked, why is Veronica so tired all the time? All she does is lay around all day. And my husband and I were like, oh, no, that's not what happens. She had physical, occupational, and speech therapy 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
So almost all the rest of the time she was sleeping. And so we had therapy. And then after we got out of the hospital, I needed care. And when Greg was at work, at first we had neighbors take care of me, and my mom came and my dad came, and everybody stayed and took care of me for a while. And then we had to get used to different things that happened to us as far as deficits.
Mm-hmm.
I have a really my husband had to get to know us all over again, and I and my other daughter had to get to know Veronica all over again. It's like grieving a person that's alive, because
Yeah.
it's as if they died, because they're nothing like they used to be. She is a new and different person than she was before the accident, and we had to get to know her all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I want everybody to know is, if they have a loved one that has a brain injury, show them that you accept them, because if you don't show them that you accept the new them, they will never learn to accept themselves. And another thing, I learned actually a long time after the accident, years and years. You would think I would just know this, but I didn't, and my daughter didn't. When you have people in your family with brain injuries, it happens to the whole family. The whole family is injured, not just you. And nobody can ever assume that we know things now, because there's so many things that we don't comprehend. Like when somebody speaks quickly, I get stuck on the first couple words, and the rest of the sentence just sounds like blah, blah, blah. And
Mm-hmm.
so I will have to ask somebody to repeat themselves. My husband sometimes thinks I'm not listening to him, but I'm just not comprehending what he has said. Like if somebody speaks a little more quickly, then we can understand. My processing is not that good now. My when we go places, I forget when I'm driving, like even a mile from home, I forget where I am. I look around and I'm really confused, and it's super scary. I don't know where I'm going or why I'm going there. So my husband and I have a system now, because I have horrible memory loss. I'll get to Veronica in a minute. Because I have horrible memory loss, our system is I write what I'm doing in a date book. And the day before, I write down where I'm going, what I'm doing. And my husband at night before bed looks at the date book, and he always asks me if I know where I'm going. Because sometimes even when we use a GPS, I don't know why I mix up my left and my right. I don't know where I'm going still, even with a GPS. So he sometimes writes me a map. Or if I get lost, I call him and he will say, I used to call him crying hysterically. I don't know where I am. I'm so scared. And he would say, you have to go to the next crossroads because I can't help you if I don't know where you are. And now we have Life 360. So that helps a lot. And my daughter, because of her poor memory, she can ask me the day before, like I didn't tell you, I put that note that I write on the counter, and my husband looks at it in the morning too and asks me again if I know where I'm going. But I still get lost if I go places that are not on that list. So my daughter will ask me when she gets up, what are we doing today? And I might tell her, go look at the list, because I even forget. I look at it several times a day. And a little while later, she'll ask me again, where are we going? And I'll tell her like Walmart or whatever. And then we get in the car. I'll say, where are we going? So she forgets. Our short-term memories are super bad. But I write everything down. We have notes on our microwave, and I know that doesn't look very tidy. And sometimes we'll take a picture like for Facebook, and it's aimed toward the kitchen. And my husband will say, couldn't you have taken the notes down off the microwave before you took the picture? But I don't worry about it because that's our life now. We can't do anything about it. We have notes on the kitchen counter. I have a note on the mirror in the bathroom. I even have a note, the first thing you do in the morning is go to the bathroom, and I have a note in front of the toilet that says to take my meds because I don't want to forget, because they're really important. So I've even put a note on the steering wheel in a car before. I just write everything down. A lot of people use their telephone, but I have a love-hate relationship with my phone. So I don't know technology very, very well. So I don't use my phone for that. And what else about recovery? It's been super hard. It's still hard. We lost all our friends because we have different behaviors now than we used to. And Veronica's became very sexual. And because of that, her friends became uncomfortable because she would talk about like everything she did with her boyfriend, and she was very specific and told a lot of details. And she used to be really quiet, and now she's very loud, and she would tell everything. She doesn't have a filter. And part of our recovery also, which Veronica is mostly past now, is she would bare her chest everywhere. We even went to the gym one day, and she saw a guy she thought was handsome, and he was leaving, and she was talking to him. And when he went outside, she pounded on the window and she pulled her shirt up. But see, she doesn't just pull her shirt up. She pulls her undergarments up as well. So it's really inappropriate. And we lost all our friends for like 10 years. And we would sit on the couch and hold hands and pray that we would find new friends. And we do have new friends now, and they accept us the way we are. And they know we're a little quirky sometimes, but that's okay. They love us and we love them.
Well, it's amazing that you have found that support system, whether it's through your husband, your other daughter, and now your new friends. You have those people in your life that are meant to be there for you guys while you're still going through the recovery process, even now, and finding out who the new Veronica and yourself are.
We're so close. Our family is so, so close. But one thing that did happen, I have PTSD, but so does Greg. Greg has it so badly that if, wait a second, I have to think. If he doesn't come home from work and get home on time, I start to panic and I can just see him on the side of the road dead. And he's a great driver, but not everybody else is. And I'll start making phone calls. So now if he's going to go somewhere after work, he writes it on a note and we put it on the microwave because I panic. And if I'm not home when he thinks I should be home from going however many places I'm supposed to go, he panics and he starts calling. And if we have this on not on Facebook, well, in Messenger, we have this group and it only includes us four, my husband, myself, Veronica, and Kylie. And when we put messages on there, they're often very important messages. And Veronica forgets that it's for the important messages, and Kylie doesn't turn that off at night or at work. So Veronica blows it up with things she sees on Facebook, things she's just thinking about, and it's not always the most important things. And so she'll wake up Kylie on the weekends very early when Kylie's off and she needs to get a rest. It'll be 7 a.m. and Veronica's blowing up that one messenger. And so we try and tell Veronica, don't do that. Don't put those messages on there because it wakes Kylie up and then Kylie panics and she has to look at it. So we all got hit with a lot of after trauma.
I'm sure that's a very difficult process, but at least you guys are trying, you have a system set in place. So I'm sure that helps all of you kind of when those days happen that somebody gets home a little later than expected, at least you have that messenger and those notes to kind of remember what's going on and what time somebody might be home.
There's something I wanted to share before you go on. After the accident, I never had my husband's name in my phone as an emergency person. And somebody came to the car and got my phone and called him. And so he could be at the accident site. And I feel like a lot of God things happened. I don't know if not everybody believes in God, but we're very deep believers. And a lot of things happened that we feel were from God. When we were in the car and I woke up after I was knocked out, I've never been so calm in my life. I felt like if I had died, it would have been okay. And I've always been like really afraid of dying, but that day I wasn't afraid. And I felt like there was a bubble in the car. And I think the people in the ER probably thought I was crazy because all I could talk about was there was a bubble in the car and it wrapped around Veronica's left side. Even though she was so badly hurt, she lived. And the bubble was in the middle of the car and around my right side. And I just felt like we were protected. They had to take the jaws of life to get the roof off the car to get us out. And we didn't have any damage from all the glass. And in the back seat, I had I had a coat and the sleeves were folded twice and it was just full of glass. And there was just odd things that happened that day. My older daughter's one of her friends died a year before, one street before, the same time of day, and in the same kind of accident, but she had died. And Veronica and her chemistry teacher were talking about it that morning because it was the 1-year anniversary. Oh, wow. And he said, that's really funny. You should say that because you're sitting in her exact chemistry seat. And she said, my daughter, watch, now we'll get in an accident. And everybody said, no, don't say that. I have goosebumps as I talk about it. Don't say that. And then we did. And that day, I wasn't doing very well at my job. And that day, I asked my boss, it was a prosthodontic office, and I didn't know all the lingo. And she let me borrow a book that I could like kind of study from. And I said to her, is it really okay if I borrow it? What if you don't get it back? It was in the back seat of the car.
Oh,
where do these things come from? It was just meant to be. We don't ever ask why it happened. We don't, yeah, we never say why me ever. We find blessings. Even in my book, I have an actual, in a notebook, a journal. I have an written a journal. When I got out of the hospital after 3 weeks, I knew I wouldn't remember what was happening with Veronica, so I wrote it in a journal every day, and I put that journal in my book. And it's incredible because almost every day after I wrote what was going on that day, I always thanked God for the smallest little blessings. I don't care if she moved a finger, if she, I don't care what she did. I always thanked God for everything. And the one thing I remember after I I figured out that Veronica was really in bad shape and we thought she was going to die. And I said, thank you, God, for the 15 wonderful years. Sorry. I thanked God for that time. And I didn't say why. I just was still thankful. So I don't know. I don't think a lot of people go through that, but I did. And that was really important to me.
Well, just hearing you talk about it gave me chills too. So thank you for sharing all of those different moments. It's a miracle that whole that you and Veronica are both okay and still able to live your life.
We do. We find joy in every day now because we we believe it happened for a reason. Another thing that's very spiritual, we read the Bible, and at the bottom of the page of Job, we were reading Job at a Bible study at work the day of the accident. And on the bottom of the page, since I have a study Bible, it does a lot, it has explanations at the bottom, and it's Job 1:8-12. And it says, when things go wrong, do you say, why me? Or do you say, use me? And I believe we were used by the Lord to bring faith into other people's lives, because when Veronica came back after everything she went through, people knew it was a miracle. And miracles, God's responsible for miracles. So that's what we believe.
Most definitely. And so you kind of talked about the memory issues that you and Veronica both have, but what are some other daily challenges that you guys face?
I forget my words a lot, and we play charades at home. I describe everything I'm talking about. I can say, well, it's big, or a person, she has blonde hair, she was in a show last week, and it's very, can be very distant. See, I forgot my word. Examples, distant examples. And my husband will know exactly what I'm talking about. Veronica can figure it out. Kylie can figure it out. And I forget my words, especially if we have a big get together and I get a little bit more nervous, I'll forget my words. And I remember one specific get together. Kylie was kind of across the room, but she was looking at me and she could see that I was struggling. And she just winked at me. And to me, it was like a hug. You're okay. And she does that for me. And it just feels so supportive. So I forget my words a lot when I get nervous and when I'm not nervous.
That's okay. You're not alone. A lot of people forget their words. I know it's a little bit different, but at least you have your daughters and your husband that will help you through it.
They're so supportive. And to get through, I've gone through a lot of counseling to help me, because for 12 years I thought I was stupid because of my deficits.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I would say, I'm so stupid, for 12 years. And I finally had this really great counselor, and she helped me understand that I'm not stupid. I'm injured. And that is never going to go away. And the reason it's never going to go away is because, and I say I'm a lot, sorry.
You're fine.
When your brain is injured, the neurons, if they're twisted, torn, or stretched, they never heal exactly the same as they were. Like if they're broken, they can reroute themselves so you can still function, but you'll function differently. And that's what makes your personality different, because they never ever go back to exactly the way they were. So I'm not stupid, I'm just injured, and that's why I'm different.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you got to go to counseling and make yourself aware that you're not stupid, because there are a lot of other people who are going through something like you went through, and you all are just a little different than you were before, but that doesn't make you any less amazing than you were prior to the accident.
Thank you. I tell people that.
And so you kind of talked about a variety of different obstacles that both you and Veronica have faced, but what would you say has like single-handedly been the most difficult obstacle for both of you to overcome?
Losing all our friends, and wait, because I wrote two things. I have more than one page of notes. Why I can't think of it off the top of my head. That's so sad.
Oh, you're no worries.
The biggest thing is losing all of, and Veronica has lost independence.
Mm,
That is the biggest thing for her. She can't drive because she gets the gas and brakes mixed up. She's tried 4 times with professionals. So she's not, even ones that specialize in helping brain injured people get their licenses back. She just can't. And then she lives at home, and she can't work because she forgets the next step. You can tell her what she needs to do, and she might do it really well, but then she'll stand there and wait because she can't remember what comes next. She
mhm.
went to nail school, and she finished school, but she couldn't take, what is that? She couldn't get her certificate or her license. I don't know what it is, because they don't allow you to use a list. You have to know how to do nails on your own, and she
Mhm.
couldn't do that. So she's unable to work. And also another thing that makes her unable to work is she's very impulsive, and we get angry so easily, and we call it going from white to red, where you're calm, and it doesn't even take but a couple seconds and you're seeing red. Literally, she will start shaking, her face turns red, and she starts blurting cuss words. I don't know why cuss words such a big thing for brain injured people, but they are.
Mhm.
We a lot of people with brain injuries cuss. I'm on a lot of support groups for brain injuries, and on Facebook, and that's a huge problem for everybody with brain injuries. And so she will get irate so quickly, and she'll be inappropriate, so she can't work. And we also have guardianship of her because she makes very poor decisions. She can't even go on a bus by herself, because if there is a man that she thinks is handsome and he talks to her and he wants her to come back with him off the bus, she'll leave with him,
Mhm.
and it's horrifying. So we keep a good eye on her.
Mhm. I'm sure that's a big difference than both you and your husband, as well as her, thought was going to be the case while she was in adulthood. So I'm sure that's frustrating on her end that she doesn't really have all of her independence.
We don't make her live in a box, though.
Hmm.
As far as if she has a boyfriend, excuse me, if she has a boyfriend, she did last year, and she was allowed to sleep at his house, and he was allowed to sleep here. She lives on the bottom floor, like the basement of our house. There's a rec room and a another bedroom, a bathroom, her bedroom, and it's pretty spacious. And we don't go down there without yelling down the stairs first or anything. We we give her as much independence as we feel is safe. So
And I'm sure that's all she can ask for. It's basically like she has her own little apartment in the basement, it
That's
sounds
what
like.
she calls it. She
Hmm.
says, it's my apartment. Don't come down.
Well, that's perfect. She still has her own space. Thank you. So how have you come to terms with your injury and managed to stay positive throughout all of this?
Three things. The Lord, I lean on him, and I swear when I couldn't carry myself, he carried me because I don't know how I got through everything we went through. I feel like if somebody would have told me that we were going to go through what we went through, I would have got in bed and put the covers up and never come out.
Hmm.
You, people say we're strong. It's not that we're strong. It's that you have to live with what you've been given. And then the other thing is my family, my husband, I lean on him so much. And it's really hard for him to live with two brain injured people. It's frustrating. He it's hard for him because we forget things and he has to remind us so much and re-say what he's just said so much. And he used to think I just wasn't listening to him, but that's not what the case was. And then the third thing is counseling. Like I said, we went to counseling and that helped me immensely. And I still, every, whenever I need it, I go back. What's
Well,
sad is oops, sorry.
no, go ahead.
What's, what's sad is my favorite counselor ended up leaving independent counseling to go to a hospital, and you have to be admitted to the hospital in order to be able to see her.
Mhm.
I'm not going there.
Well, it's great that you're still going to counseling when you need it and you recognize that. And obviously, your husband is amazing to be able to help take care of you and Veronica. Um,
We
and
call him a saint.
yes.
Even in my book, it says he's a saint
Hmm.
because he is. He's incredible.
Well, that's amazing that you have somebody like that in your life that you can lean on and you know he's going to be there.
Yeah.
And is it difficult to live with, like some people would call this like an invisible disability? And how do you overcome like that stigma that surrounds it?
Honestly, for me, I haven't experienced the stigma personally because whenever I talk to somebody, I tell them right away, I have a brain injury and I don't remember my words sometimes and I have to stop and think. And then the other thing is, oh my God, I can't remember. Wait a minute. I don't process quickly. So if they speak too fast, I'm not going to understand them and then they're going to have to repeat themselves. I'm so open about it. I This wasn't part of your question, I don't think, but I'm going to say it.
Go ahead.
Veronica and I are huge advocates about brain injuries. We actually go to high schools and teach health classes. The kids are ages 15 to 18 about brain injuries. So uh, we're trying to get the word out there. I have a website, I have my book, we go to schools, I've done interviews, podcasts, um, newspaper articles we've been in, and radio shows. We're we want to get out there.
You guys are on it. And I think it's great that you're spreading all this awareness and being so open about your traumatic brain injury because I feel like it's something that a lot of people don't talk about or don't recognize. And so I think that's amazing that you guys are being those voices.
I wrote my book so that other people, survivors and caregivers and like family and friends will not feel alone in their experience because this is a lonely experience.
Oh,
We're not the only ones that have lost their friends. I haven't known anybody that has had a brain injury unless it's been very moderate, very, very mild
hmm.
that hasn't lost their friends. Excuse me. And that's an awful, awful thing to happen. And if I didn't have my family to be so supportive, I don't know what we would have done. I've
Mm-hmm.
said so many times, I am so grateful that I was in the accident with Veronica. First of all, I don't think I could have been as strong as my husband in making decisions for us and being able to take care of us. I don't think I could have walked in his shoes. I don't think I could have. So I'm grateful that I was in the car for that reason. And also I would never want my child to go through this alone.
Oh, definitely. That you are able to understand her in a way that other people aren't.
I'm
And
right in the middle.
yes.
Moderate. I can see her side, but I can also see my husband's side
Mm-hmm.
times.
And you and Veronica going out and having talking to high schoolers and you writing your book and all the other sources that you've been talking to, like you're able to build this community with people who have a similar story or even families who have had traumatic brain injuries happen to like a family member. You guys are able to build a community with these people and help kind of share your stories with each other to grow together in a way.
We're trying to turn a very traumatic experience into something positive.
Hmm. And I think you guys are doing a great job at doing that. Um,
Thank you.
mhm. And what do you wish more people knew about traumatic brain injuries?
That it's forever. I get so frustrated when people say, I had a brain injury and I'm 100% better now. On support groups, I see that and it just makes me cringe because yes, you can become functional again, but you're never going to be the same person you were before you were injured. And a lot of people think this happened a lot in the beginning when we were super injured. You look fine. You look great. You must be doing so well now. You cannot see someone's brain. What is out here is not what's inside. And that's so frustrating because, and I have a friend that wrote a book and it's called She Looks Fine. So I'm giving that book a plug too because it's good. It's called She Looks Fine. And the author, her first name is Roberta, and I can't remember how to pronounce her last name, but it's a good one too. Um, and then the other, let's see, we teach a lot about compassion in
Hmm.
school. I tell the story that when you see, I don't know if this is answering your question, I'm
Oh, you're
sorry.
fine. Go ahead.
When you see somebody in school and they're acting out inappropriately, don't look at them and think, oh, they're so weird. You don't know their story. You have no idea what they've been through. And another one is if if they're not wearing the cool clothes, you know how cliques will look at other people and they just keep within themselves because so and so doesn't have the right shoes or the right outfit.
Hmm.
You don't know if their parent has had a traumatic brain injury. They're only on Social Security, which gives you very little money. Their spouse is left because they can't handle all the changes. And the parent might be barely hanging on to keep a roof over their head and food in their stomachs. And they only can go to Goodwill. Have compassion for people. You don't know their story. And that's a big one we teach. Don't be judgmental. So I can't remember what your question was. I'm
Oh no,
sorry.
you're fine. It was just talking about what you wanted people to know about traumatic brain injury. So I
Oh,
think you
yeah.
you did answer it. You're good.
Okay.
And I think that the lesson that you're teaching about compassion and not judging people is a big one that kids need to know, adults need to know, everybody. Like you said, have compassion. You don't know what's going on in somebody's life.
And yeah, that's the thing about you look fine.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know.
Mm-hmm. There's a bigger story there behind the you look fine.
Mm-hmm.
And the last question I have is, do you have advice for those who are also survivors of traumatic brain injury?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. People won't know you're as injured as you are if you're not talking, but you'll miss so much in life if you don't ask questions when you're confused or you don't understand. So it's good to ask questions. And the other thing, my biggest thing in my life, write it down, write it down, write it down.
Yes, definitely write it down. You have your notes, now you have your book. Writing it down definitely worked for you.
Thank you. It does on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for sharing that advice with everybody. So that concludes our interview for today. Mrs. Corbelli, thank you again so much for joining us and sharing your story. All of the work that you are doing to spread awareness of traumatic brain injuries and advocating for mental health is truly inspirational. And please make sure to check out Mrs. Corbelli's book, A Miracle a Day, One Day at a Time, Hope After Traumatic Brain Injury, which can be purchased on Amazon as a paperback or a Kindle version. And if you're interested in sharing your story with us, please reach out with your name and email address to set up an interview. Email me at powerofpatient@gmail.com. I'm Bri Allison for the Power of the Patient Project. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was amazing.
Thank you.